Amcham's summit. That's right, it's all about this, the Tech Hub Island Summit for 2025, where it's all about engagement, execution, and evolution. This is tech all the way through. Let's talk about the IT TTRS as it relates to artificial intelligence.
All right. So in the context of artificial intelligence, there are a lot of different domains that you look at, but one of the most predominant domains of artificial intelligence that we look at is machine learning, how we handle processes. And for us, as our market has continued to grow, not just in Trinidad, but our understanding of the rideshare market in general, it's a lot of data to intake, and it can be very overwhelming when you need large groups of data. And AI, for one, is a tool that helps to break some barriers down. So in barriers of context, when you look at the time it takes to process large volumes of data, the time it takes to understand and learn what the predictive models can tell us about data. Those things, while traditionally we look at how things were done manually, we now have the ability to look at data from a holistic view with large groups, but also understanding even the granular data that is comprised in the entire body. So historically, when you look at things from a decision-making level, you look at the board, you look at the macro numbers. So the total figures, you look at just in the same way we look at GDP, country to country, what actually is incorporated into the GDP. That sort of data, AI gives us the ability to understand the individual components that make up the whole. And it helps us to understand it in a more meaningful way with a lot less time barriers for how we get that done. So from the beginning of taking in the granular data to where we represent it and we actually show it to someone who may not be familiar with every term that goes from collecting the data to how it's visualized, AI helps put that into perspective and break down not just the time, but the cost of what it takes to do that. So over the years, we've seen, you've heard a lot of skepticism about AI and how AI is going to take our jobs and take our responsibilities. And by and large, it may require a lot of people to reskill to maintain their place in the workforce. But I think it will restructure the way we do business in general. So smaller organizations can now utilize AI that is relatively a lot more cheap in context of doing business 10 years ago, right? To understand their business and understand their model. So rather than hiring 5 persons to do a job, you can use AI assistants and you can use your current workforce to upskill, and you can probably not have to hire as much persons, but you can get persons to the capacity of that 3 or 4 persons in one individual. So building capacity is something that organizations have trouble doing when it comes to how they scale, because of course the cost of production, cost of doing business, the opportunity cost that we have to deal with, AI helps break down a lot of those barriers. So you can get a lot further, a lot faster, and a lot cheaper. So I don't think that's generally bad for business. I think it's really good for persons who cost traditionally would not have been able to get them into certain markets. AI has really helped in making that possible. So for us, that's just kind of how we look at it at TTRS.
Wow,
from the perspective of AI.
You went through it there. I had other questions before I asked it. You started answering it. So let me get to my conclusion question.
All right.
This is your first time being at Amcham?
No, actually, the first conference I've been at this was in 2022.
All right.
And this is my 4th year actually attended. First year speaking, but this is the 4th time I've been here. And what I really love about this conference, powered by Republic and Amcham, is the fact that they bring a lot of like-minded thinkers together, persons who are looking to gain additional perspective on where the technology market is in Trinidad. I think a challenge that we have is adopting technology in a meaningful way. And the challenge comes from skill. How do we skill persons up to the point where they are competent enough to handle the technological advancement, to also boost the technical maturity of applications within their workspace while still learning. So the challenge is, how do you get persons to learn while still being effective at their current jobs? And I think that is one of the challenges when we come to conferences. And my experience coming to this, it's like it gives a lot of reassurance as to where we are going and the direction that we are going. And seeing and comparing yourself to persons that you hear speak, like it gives okay, I had this idea in my head, I was probably going for this, but yes, this is additional reassurance. So I think this is an example of how you really use engagement to boost execution of your business services.
Couldn't have said it better.